Hello and welcome to Sci-Net's Understanding Business Central series. Today we're going to be covering look and feel. At the end of this video you should be able to understand how to navigate around the solution as well as understanding the key concepts of the application. When you first access the application, the first screen that you're presented with is called the Role Center. Now the Role Center are groups of functionality based on your role within the organization. In the example that we're seeing on the screen here at the moment, I'm logged in as the business manager. Now, the business manager role is targeted at smaller organizations and therefore provides me with a general overview of the entire application. However, Microsoft do provide an additional 20 user-centric role centers that can be accessed by clicking on the settings cog at the top right-hand corner of the screen and then clicking on My Settings. Once in My Settings, you will see that there is a role here, shows that I'm in here as Business Manager, and if I click on the three dots here, I can then access any of the other role centers that are available within the application. So if I wanted to provide myself with a more financial specific role, I could jump to the accountant role by clicking on it. You'll see that it's now selected in the role. Clicking OK will prompt the system to reload the accountant role center, which, as you will see, changes both the functionality and the KPIs to be driven far more by the accountants in your organization. However, for the remainder of our demonstration today, we're going to use the business manager role as it provides a more generic overview of the solution. So again, if we go to My Settings, we can change back to the business manager role in the same way as we did to the accountant role. Press OK. Now the role center itself is broken into two distinct sections. So we have the navigation pane at the top. These are menu options specific to the role center that you're in. So if I was to click on finance, you will see I've now got menu items here relating to finance. If I wanted to jump to the chart of accounts, let's say, all I'd need to do is to move down to the chart of accounts, click on here, and I'm now in the chart of accounts screen. And if I wanted a better view of that, I can turn this note section off by clicking on this little eye icon over the side here. Now, if I wanted to go back to the role center again, all I need to do is to click on the back button at the top here, and it will navigate me back to the role center. Now that's one way of navigating around Business Central. But if you're coming from a legacy system and you prefer a more menu option driven system, this can be achieved by clicking on these three lines at the end, which we call the Explore All function. If you click on the Explore All, you will see that all the previous drop-down menus are rendered as just point and click. And again, this is great from a training perspective of getting your staff used to the system. One of the other nice features about the Explore All function is you can explore other people's roles. So by clicking on the Explore More Roles function, you will see that all of the roles that we looked at previously are now rendered and available for you to explore. So for example, if I wanted to look at the finance role, I can click on Explore, and this will then give me every menu option available to a finance user. As we navigate around other users' role centers, we may come across something that we believe should be on our role center. An example here being payment methods. If I click on payment methods and I want this to appear on my role center, all I need to do is to go to this option at the top here, which is called a bookmark. And if I click on this, the system will tell you that it's going to add it to the navigation pane that we were looking at earlier. And if I now close this screen, you should see that payment methods now appears here. This is the third form of navigation and allows you to then personalize the menu suite without having to approach your partner to make changes to the role center. The second area is called the content area and effectively is a group of panes of information arranged onto a screen. So as you can see here, we've got like a KPIs area, which will give you sales this month, overdue invoices, and then below that you have what we call queues. Now a queue is a KPI that allows you to drill through to see the underlying information. So for example here, as you can see, we have sales invoices 15. If I click on that 15, it will actually drill me to the information that makes up the invoices that we were just looking at. And again, if I want to go back to the queues, all I do is click on this back button at the top here, and it will take me back to my role center again. As you become more accustomed to the system, you will likely use the search option to navigate your way around the system. And we do that by clicking on this little magnifying glass on the top bar here. If I click that, and then it then says, what term do you want to look for? So in this case here, we're going to look for items. So I could type in the word items, and the system will present me the options on the current page that reference items, anywhere within the system, so any pages or tasks that reference items, and any reports. And in this case here, we're going to go to the page which contains items. So if I click on that and we scroll down this list, you will see I now have a list of items, their inventory, their category that they're in, their cost, their price, and who we buy them from. Now this is a list of items, and generally speaking, lists are used as our first view of data within the application and are read-only and allow users to search for things. So if you're searching for things, you can see at the top here, if I wanted to, I could search for a chair, press return, and the system will come back and give me everything that contains the word chair. Now that's great, you might say. Okay, I can look at that information, but what if I want to group these things together? So for example, I may want to look at chairs where the inventory is greater than 0. And if I wanted to do that, if I click on here, above each of these options where you've got the actual descriptor here, you'll have a down arrow. And if I click on that down arrow, it will say, do I want to filter to this value, or do I want to filter this particular column? So if I go to filter, and again, this works exactly like Excel. So if I want to say where it has some stock, I want to say where it's greater than 0. I press return. This will now give me a list of items that are greater than 0. And again, you can build these things up. So if I go to the next filter, and I might want to say, and where I buy it from vendor 30,000. Again, I can click on here, and I can then say, and filter to this value. And you'll now see I'm now looking at a list of chairs where the inventory is greater than 0, and I buy it from vendor 30,000. Now, if this is a view that's important to you and something that you want to do on a regular basis, I can actually save these filters as well. And if I click at the top here and I say save as, I can call this chair filters for argument's sake. And this will allow me to very quickly jump between these filters. So if I click on all, this will show me everything like this. And if I now click back on my chairs, I will then get my list of chairs. Now we've got our filter here. If I wanted to have a visual representation of what this looked like, I could click on these little 3 lines here, which allow me to go to the view option. And currently you see we're looking at list. Now generally speaking, as I said, list is normally used for searching, but if you want a visual representation, I can change it to tall tiles. And this will then give us more of a web page driven look and feel. So again, if I wanted to go in and have a look at the London swivel chair, I can see what it is I'm looking at now, and all I do is just hover over and click, and it will then take me into the card view of data. This is the second view of data within the application. It's called a card. And generally speaking, cards are used throughout the system for data entry and have a large number of fields relating to that area of the system that you're in. So in this case here, we're on the item card, and therefore, if we look up and down the screen, we can see everything there is we need to know with regards to the swivel chair. So I can see the category that it's in. I can see how many we've got in stock, how many we've got on purchase order. As we come down, what our costing methods are. And as you'll see, as we're navigating up and down the screen here, information is grouped into tabs, and these things are called fast tabs. And again, Microsoft have been very specific when they've created these fast tabs in order not to flood the user with data. So as you'll see on this front screen here, everything in this general tab here about the London swivel chair is visible to me at the moment. But if we determined, or we decided, that there was information that we didn't want to see, or certain things are more important than others, we have the ability to personalize this to either show less or show more, or even collapse the entire tab. So for example here, you'll see I'm currently looking at about 10 fields. If I go to show less, I'll now get only the information that's pertinent to this particular item, the things that are most important from this general tab. Again, I also have the ability to collapse up the tab completely, which I'll just show you now. And in this case here, you can see at the moment, currently only one field this is what we call promoted. And again, the idea behind this is, and if you're coming from a legacy system, this is something that used to happen all the time, is you couldn't remember which tab that field was on, so you ended up clicking through all the tabs until you found the information you were looking for. Microsoft saw that and basically created this promoted functionality to allow you to show things even though those tabs are actually collapsed. Now we can control this functionality as end users using something called personalization. And if we just use, let's just go down here, let's use the costing tab as a good example of this. If we go into the cog in the top here, and then we go to personalize, you'll see I get a slightly different view of data now. And if I move the mouse over any of these fields, you'll see they've now got this little red arrow at the side here. Now what that allows me to do, so for example, if I'm not interested in this deferral template, I can click on this on the red arrow, and as you can see here, I've now got a number of different options. I can move it, so that allows me to move it up and down the screen, so I'll show you that very quickly. If we go here, I can drag this, and it will show me this little line here, and if I let go of it, it will then move that to where I want it to be. If I then decide, actually, I don't want to see a full stop, I can click on that arrow again, and this time I can go to remove. Now, just to show you, when you remove something, it's not actually removing it, it's just hiding it. And those removed fields can always be accessed via this field menu at the side here. So there you go. So there's my deferral template we looked at, and if I wanted to drop it back onto the screen again, I click and hold, and then you say where you want it to be placed, and there you go, it's back again. Okay, so it's as easy as that. The other things that we looked at earlier about this show less and show more, okay, so if I go to show less now this deferral template, as you see, I can still see that. Now, if it's not that important to me and I don't want to see it, I can click on this little box here, and I can then go to show under show more, okay, and what this will do is it will remove it from the important view. And if I now click on the show more, you'll see it will appear again as and when I show more. Now, again, as an end user, you can do that, and it then puts you in control of what's important to you. And all of these changes, these personalization changes, are visible only to you. Now, there is an exception to that rule, and that is when we're first implementing this solution, we can put it into config mode, and that config mode allows us to create what we think is the master view for that particular role. So, okay, so we've talked about show more, show less. The other thing that we wanted to see is if I now collapse this up, okay, so you can see now that I've got in there £96.10, retail and resale, okay. Now, as you can see here, £96.10 is the unit cost, and resale and retail here are the general product posting group and the inventory posting group. If I wanted to include the costing method on that collapsed view, if I click on costing method here again, and then you'll see there's another option here now that says show when collapsed. Okay, so this doesn't do anything to the show more, show less, but when I actually then collapse this tab, you'll now see that I have FIFO here as my collapsed option.